The arrival. The massive windows of the Galactic Federation Academy's main hall showed a view of 3 moons hanging in the purple sky. Students from 17 different species walked through the grand hallways. Some floated, others crawled, and a few even rolled. They all came to learn how to defend their worlds. Zixla stood near the entrance, her green skin glowing softly in the artificial light. As a Quarian, she breathed methane and had photosynthetic skin that could absorb energy from almost any light source. Her 4 eyes blinked in different patterns as she watched the crowd. She had finished top of her class in theoretical tactics on her homeworld. Now she was ready for advanced training. "Excuse me?" came a musical voice like chiming crystals. "Are you also here for the tactical program?" Zixla turned to see a Vosian standing nearby, the crystalline being glowed with soft blue pulses, the Vosian way of showing polite interest. Her transparent body reflected the light in beautiful patterns. "Yes, I am Zixla of Corion Prime. And you are?" "I am Kalara of the Vosian Collective," the crystal being replied. "I have studied all the classic battle formations. My species values logic above all else." Before Zixla could respond, a shadow fell over both of them. They looked up to see a massive 6-limbed figure. The creature had to duck to fit through the doorway. "Hello, small ones," the giant said in a surprisingly gentle voice. "I am Droom of the Taurian herds. I hope I am not interrupting." Despite his intimidating size, everything about Droom's posture showed he was trying to appear friendly. The Taurians were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful beings who hated violence, despite looking like living tanks. "Not at all," Zixla said. "We are all here for tactical training." Droom's 4 ears drooped slightly. "Yes. My elders believe we must understand war to prevent it, though I wish there were other paths." The academy bell chimed, a sound designed to be heard by all species regardless of their hearing range. "We should go," Kalara said, her crystal body flashing with patterns of urgency. "I hear we have a new instructor this cycle, someone unusual." They joined the stream of students flowing toward the tactical wing. The classroom was designed to accommodate beings of all sizes and environmental needs. Special sections were set up for methane breathers like Zixla, while temperature-controlled areas serviced species with specific heat requirements. The room grew quiet as the door slid open. The students expected to see a respected Arxian war master or perhaps one of the ancient Voldurian strategists. Instead, a single bipedal figure walked in. He stood on 2 legs with only 2 arms, had no protective scales or exoskeleton, and his skin was a dull, pinkish-brown color. "Is that?" Droom whispered, his voice filled with disbelief. "A human," Zixla confirmed, all 4 of her eyes widening. Humans were a new addition to the Galactic Federation. They came from a planet called Earth, classified as a Class 12 death world. Most galactic citizens could not even survive for an hour on such a planet. With its crushing gravity, toxic oxygen atmosphere, extreme temperature variations, and thousands of dangerous predators. The human was not particularly tall or impressive looking. He wore the standard instructor uniform with sergeant markings. His face had a small patch of hair on the lower half and more hair on top of his head, both colored dark brown. "Good morning," the human said. "I am Sergeant Frank Harding. Welcome to Advanced Tactical Training." His voice was calm, but something about it made several students shift uncomfortably in their seats. "I understand you may be surprised to see a human instructor," Harding continued. "Let me be direct. The war with the Drakon Imperium is not going well. Your previous instructors taught you the standard tactics that have failed against the Drakon for the past 20 years. He walked to the center of the room, moving with a strange fluid grace that seemed at odds with his solid frame. "The Academy has brought me here because they're desperate. Humans think differently about warfare. We evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill us, including ourselves." A Phyraxian student raised a tentacle. "Instructor, with respect, the Phyraxian Empire has fought wars for 10,000 years. What could humans teach us about tactics?" Sergeant Harding did something unexpected. His face changed, pulling back to show his teeth in what the students would later learn was called a smile. Many of the students instinctively recoiled, In most species, showing teeth was a threat display. An excellent question, Harding said. Let me answer with one of my own. How many of you come from predator species? 3 students raised appendages. And how many from prey species? About half the class responded. Interesting. Humans are both. We evolved as prey, then became predators, then became our own prey. We've been fighting ourselves and our environment for our entire existence. He touched a control panel, and a holographic image of Earth appeared in the center of the room. It showed storms, volcanoes, floods, and other natural disasters. This is a normal day on parts of Earth. We call these weather and geology. You call them catastrophes. The image changed to show ancient humans hunting massive beasts with nothing but sharpened sticks. We've been outnumbered and outmatched our entire history, so we learned to cheat. The word didn't translate well. Several students looked confused. To break rules, Harding clarified. To do the unexpected. To win when winning seems impossible. He walked around the room, looking at each student in turn. For your first assessment tomorrow, you will face me in a simulated fleet defense scenario. I will be controlling the enemy forces. His face made that teeth-showing expression again. I guarantee you will all fail. Several students shifted nervously. They weren't used to such blunt declarations. Most instructors emphasized encouragement and gradual improvement. But, Harding continued, those who understand why they failed will begin to understand how humans think. And that, students, is how you will learn to survive. As the class ended, Zixila, Kalara, and Droom found themselves walking together toward the dining hall. He seemed intense, Kalara said, her crystal form pulsing with uncertainty. My species has a saying, Droom rumbled. To understand a hunter, watch how it stalks its prey. I feel we are being stalked. Zixila's skin darkened with concern. The Academy wouldn't have brought him here if they weren't desperate. The Drakon must be winning the war. They passed a window showing the peaceful purple sky outside. Tomorrow, Zixila said, we find out what it means to face a creature from a death world. None of them slept well that night. The simulation chamber was a large dome with black walls covered in tiny lights. When active, it could create perfect holographic images of space, ships, and weapons. The students entered nervously, finding their assigned stations. Zixila settled into her methane-filled pod. Next to her, Kalara's crystalline form glittered as she took her place at a tactical station. Across the room, Droom carefully seated his massive body at a command console designed for his 6-limbed frame. Remember your training, Kalara said, her body flashing with confidence patterns. The standard Voldurian defense formations have worked for centuries. Against conventional enemies, Zixila reminded her. The instructor said humans think differently. Their conversation ended as Sergeant Harding entered the chamber. He wore a simple black uniform and carried no materials with him. Today's scenario is straightforward, he said. Your fleet must defend a critical supply line between these 2 star systems. He pointed, and the simulation came to life, showing a stretch of space with planets, moons, and asteroid fields. You have 30 ships at your disposal. I control the enemy fleet of 20 ships. The simulation begins in 5 minutes. As Harding left to take his position in a separate control room, the students quickly formed a plan. We should set up a classic Voldurian shield wall formation, suggested a snake-like Sarathi student. Put our heavy ships in front to absorb damage while our faster ships guard the flanks. And keep our long-range vessels in the rear to provide supporting fire, added Zixila. It's the most efficient formation for defensive operations. They arranged their ships carefully. 10 heavy cruisers formed a protective line in front of the supply route. Fast attack ships patrolled the sides. Long-range vessels sat safely in the back where they could fire without being hit. A perfect formation, Kalara said, her crystal body glowing with satisfaction. Textbook perfect. The simulation began. The enemy ships appeared on their screens, standard Federation vessels like their own. For several minutes, nothing happened. The enemy fleet simply sat at a distance, not moving. What is he doing? Droom wondered. Attempting to make us nervous, Kalara replied. A primitive psychological tactic. Suddenly, 3 enemy ships broke formation and accelerated directly toward the center of their defense line. He's sending ships to their doom, said Zixla. Our heavy cruisers will destroy them easily. The 3 enemy ships were quickly surrounded and destroyed by the students' cruisers. A cheer went up across the simulation chamber. That was too easy, Droom said, his voice worried. More enemy ships began moving in small groups, making seemingly random attacks and retreats. Some shots hit the students' vessels, but nothing seemed coordinated or effective. His strategy makes no sense, Kalara said. He's wasting ships on pointless attacks. As the students focused on these small skirmishes, they didn't notice several enemy ships disappearing from their sensors. They assumed these ships had been destroyed in the confusion of battle. We've destroyed almost half his fleet, and our supply line is intact, Zixla announced. At this rate, victory is certain. That's when everything changed. 5 enemy ships suddenly appeared from behind a nearby moon. They had used it to hide from sensors. They charged directly at the students' long-range vessels in the rear. Protect the artillery ships, Droom shouted. But it was too late. At the same moment, 3 more enemy ships emerged from an asteroid field on the opposite side. The random attacks earlier had slowly pulled the students' fast ships out of position, creating a gap in their defenses. But that's... Kalara's words cut off as she processed what was happening. He sacrificed those first ships deliberately. They were a distraction. Even worse, the students realized that several of their own heavy cruisers had drifted out of formation while chasing easy kills. Their perfect defensive line now had holes. The hidden enemy ships tore through their artillery vessels. Without long-range support, the heavy cruisers became vulnerable. The enemy attacked from multiple directions at once. Within minutes, their carefully planned defense collapsed. The simulation ended, showing their entire fleet destroyed while half of Sergeant Harding's ships remained. The lights in the chamber returned to normal. Sergeant Harding stood in the center, looking at the shocked students. "Can anyone tell me what happened?" he asked. Silence filled the room until Zixla spoke up. "You tricked us. Those early attacks were sacrifices to distract us and pull our ships out of position." Harding nodded. "I used the terrain, the moon and asteroid field, to hide my actual movements. I made you focus on what you could see while my real attack came from where you weren't looking. But you lost so many ships just to create a diversion," Droom said, clearly disturbed. "Those were lives. In real war, sometimes you must accept losses to achieve victory," Harding said. His voice was not cruel, but matter of fact. "The Drakon understand this. They will sacrifice ships, even entire fleets, if it gives them a strategic advantage. Our formation was theoretically perfect," Kalara protested, her crystalline form pulsing with frustrated patterns. "That was your first mistake," Harding replied. "You relied on what you thought I would do. You expected me to attack your strongest point head-on because that's what conventional tactics teach. Predictability is death. On Earth, predictable creatures became prey." He walked among the student stations. "Your second mistake was celebrating an easy victory. When your enemy seems to be making stupid mistakes, assume there's a reason. Assume you're missing something. This isn't how honorable warfare works," one student complained. "There is no honor in extinction," Harding said firmly. "The Drakon don't care about your traditions or your honor. They care about winning. If you want to survive, you need to understand that sometimes victory requires thinking like your enemy, or thinking in ways your enemy would never expect." As they left the chamber, Zixla, Kalara, and Droom walked together in stunned silence. Around them, other students were already requesting transfers to different classes. "He didn't just defeat us," Zixla finally said. "He made us defeat ourselves." Kalara's crystal form dimmed with realization. "All my life I've studied logical progression in battle, but there was nothing logical about his approach, yet it worked perfectly. My people value life above all," Droom said quietly. "The idea of sacrificing ships, even in simulation, disturbs me deeply. Yet I can't deny his strategy was effective." Zixla looked back at the simulation chamber. "I think this is just the beginning. If we stay in his class, things will only get more difficult." And yet, Kalara said, I sense we have much to learn from the human. Knowledge that might save lives in a real war. They watched as more students filed formal complaints demanding a different instructor. The three friends exchanged looks. We stay, Zixla decided. We learn, even if it terrifies us. None of them realized that Sergeant Harding was watching them from a distance, nodding with quiet approval. 2 weeks after the first simulation, the tactical class had shrunk by half. Many students had transferred to classes with more traditional instructors. Those who remained watched Sergeant Harding with a mixture of fear and fascination. Today, Harding stood at the front of the classroom beside a simple metal box on his desk. Before we begin today's lesson, I want to introduce a concept from Earth called thinking outside the box, he said. The translation systems struggled with the idiom, causing confusion among the students. It means solving problems in ways that ignore conventional limitations, Harding explained. This box contains a certificate. Anyone who can open it passes this course immediately with top honors. The student stared at the metal cube. It had no visible seams, buttons, or handles. Kalara approached first, her crystalline body glowing, with analytical patterns. She scanned the box with various sensors, searching for electronic locks or hidden mechanisms. The density suggests a complex internal structure, she announced, placing her crystal hands on different sides of the box. Other students formed a line behind her. A Vorlax student with highly sensitive tendrils examined the box for energy signatures. A mechanoid tried communicating with it using various electronic frequencies. A gaseous Nubulian attempted to seep through microscopic pores. Hours passed. The students applied increasingly sophisticated techniques. They tried temperature variations, sonic frequencies, and even mild acids. Nothing worked. Zixla observed from her methane pod, noticing that Harding simply watched them try. His face, showing that strange human expression they now recognized as amusement. Finally, when the last student gave up, Harding stepped forward. Without saying a word, he picked up the box and smashed it against the edge of his desk. The metal cracked open, and he removed a certificate from inside. The room went silent with shock. Sometimes, Harding said, holding up the broken box, the direct approach works best when everyone expects complexity, but that's... Droom couldn't finish his sentence. Cheating? Harding suggested. No, it's winning. The Drakon won't give you a fair fight with clear rules. Why should you limit yourself? Our societies value elegance and efficiency, Kalara protested, her crystal form flashing with indignation. Brute force is the last resort of the survivor, Harding interrupted. On Earth we have a saying, better to be an inelegant winner than an elegant corpse. The lesson continued with discussions about what humans called psychological operations or psyops, using deception to influence enemy thinking. Most aliens found the concept deeply disturbing. Why would anyone deliberately provide false information? Asked a Firaxian student. Communication is sacred. Because, Harding explained patiently, when your enemy believes they know your plan, they become vulnerable to a different plan. During the following days, Harding introduced more human concepts. He taught them about guerrilla warfare, hitting vulnerable targets then disappearing before the enemy could respond. He showed them feint attacks, making the enemy commit resources to defend against a threat that never materializes. Each concept made the alien students more uncomfortable, yet more intrigued. One evening after class, Zixla, Kalara, and Droom met in the Academy's Arboretum, one of the few places that accommodated all their environmental needs. Zixla's methane bubble allowed her to sit with her friends while special lighting helped her photosynthetic skin absorb energy. I'm beginning to understand the humans' methods, Kalara said, her crystal form glowing softly in the dim light. They evolved on a world where they were neither the strongest nor the fastest. They survived by outsmarting stronger predators. It goes against everything my people believe, Droom rumbled. The Taurian way values direct confrontation where both sides know the stakes. This deception feels wrong. Yet it works, Zixla pointed out. The Drakon have pushed us back for decades using conventional warfare. Perhaps we need unconventional thinking to survive. Their conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the Academy's communication system. The next day would feature a special training exercise: wilderness survival in a simulated environment. All students would participate. When morning came, the students gathered at the environmental simulation chamber. This massive room could recreate conditions from thousands of different worlds. Today it was programmed to simulate a Class 8 death world, not as harsh as Earth, but still challenging for most galactic species. The exercise is simple, Harding explained as they entered. Reach the evacuation point before nightfall. The TU environment contains natural obstacles and hazards, but no enemies. Your environmental suits will protect you from the worst conditions, but you'll still feel discomfort. The simulation began. The students found themselves in a dense forest with tall trees and thick undergrowth. The gravity was slightly stronger than standard, and the air was thick with humidity. Their task was to travel 5 kilometers to a clearing, where a simulated rescue ship waited. Zixla, Kalara, and Droom stayed together, moving carefully through the forest. Other students formed similar groups, using their various species' abilities to navigate the terrain. 2 hours into the exercise, strange things began happening. The temperature rose rapidly. Plants moved in ways not programmed into the simulation. Small animals appeared that weren't part of the original scenario. Something's wrong, Kalara said, her crystal form flashing with alarm patterns. The simulation is malfunctioning. An announcement confirmed her fear. Attention all students. There has been a technical malfunction in the environmental system. Safety protocols have been compromised. Instructors are working to reset the system. Please remain calm and proceed to your nearest exit. But the exits had disappeared as the simulation warped the environment. Real danger now faced the students. As the chamber's environmental controls went haywire, panic spread among the groups. Some students froze in place waiting for instructors to fix the problem. Others tried using their communication devices to call for help. Zixla looked at her friends. What would Sergeant Harding do? Droom's 6 eyes widened with realization. He wouldn't assume help is coming. He would find his own solution. The direct approach, Kalara added, when everyone expects to be rescued. We rescue ourselves, Zixla finished. Instead of looking for exits or waiting for help, they began applying Harding's lessons. They used the environment itself as a weapon against the malfunctioning system. Kalara's crystalline body could reflect energy beams to overload sensors. Droom's strength could create new paths through the changing landscape. Zixla's ability to process different atmospheres helped them navigate increasingly toxic air. When Sergeant Harding finally appeared through an emergency access panel, he found the 3 students not cowering or panicking, but systematically working to escape. They had already made more progress than any other group. As the simulation shut down and the students were led to safety, Zixla approached Harding privately. Was this part of the lesson? She asked, suspecting the malfunction might have been deliberate. Harding's expression remained neutral. Would it matter if it was? Zixla considered this. I suppose not. The danger felt real, and we responded as if it was. That's the point, Harding said. In real combat, you never know what's planned and what's chance. You simply adapt and overcome. Zixla's skin darkened with a profound question. How do you live like this? Always preparing for the worst possible outcome? Harding's answer was simple. On Earth, we call it Tuesday. For the first time, Zixla truly understood what it meant to come from a death world. The Academy's Grand Hall buzzed with excitement as students discussed the upcoming final assessments. After months of training, each class would face their instructors in complex battle simulations. Success would mean graduation and officer assignments. Failure could mean repeating the entire program. Most instructors provided study materials to help their students prepare. The Arxian Battlemaster gave detailed outlines of his strategies. The Voldurian tactician offered practice scenarios nearly identical to the final test. Sergeant Harding gave his remaining students only one message: expect no mercy. The class had shrunk to just 12 students. Besides Zixela, Kalara, and Droom, 9 others had stayed despite the difficulty, or perhaps because of it. They had begun to understand the value of human tactical thinking. "We need to prepare," Zixela said as she met with her friends in the academy library. "Harding will use every trick he's taught us and probably some he hasn't." Kalara's crystal form glimmered with analytical patterns. "I've been studying his previous simulations. He shows a preference for flanking maneuvers, attacking from the sides rather than head-on. And he always targets communication systems first," Droom added, his massive form hunched over a datapad. In 6 different exercises, he disabled communications before launching his main attack. "I've noticed he keeps a hidden reserve force," Zixela said. "He never commits all his resources at once." For days they studied Harding's tactics, looking for patterns and tendencies. They recruited the other students to join their planning sessions. Together, they developed countermeasures for every strategy they had seen Harding use. The day before the final assessment, Harding called them together for a last briefing. "Tomorrow we'll test everything you've learned," he said, looking at each student in turn. "The scenario is simple. Your fleet must protect 3 planets from my attack force. The simulation will last 6 hours. If any planet falls, you fail." He paused, then added, "The Drakon would show no mercy. Neither will I." That night, none of the students slept well. They knew Harding would push them to their limits, and beyond. Morning arrived, and the students entered the advanced simulation chamber. Unlike the basic dome they had used months ago, this room contained individual pods that would immerse each student in a fully realistic space environment. From their separate stations, they would need to coordinate as a fleet. Zixela took command of the defense forces. Kalara managed tactical operations. Droom coordinated the supply and support vessels. The other students took various specialized roles. Harding entered briefly to wish them luck, then disappeared to his control room. The simulation began. Their fleet appeared near 3 Earth-like planets. 40 ships under their command formed a protective network around the vulnerable worlds. In the distance, Harding's attack fleet of 35 vessels approached. "Remember the plan," Zixela transmitted to her team. "Reinforce our communications with triple redundancy. Spread our forces to counter his flanking attempts. Keep a quarter of our ships in reserve." The attack began exactly as they predicted. Harding's ships targeted their communication relays while attempting to circle around their defensive line. But the students were ready. Their backup communications activated immediately. Their spread-out formation prevented any flanking maneuvers. When Harding committed his reserve forces, they responded with their own. For 3 hours, the battle seemed perfectly balanced. The students countered every move before it fully developed. Their strategy worked flawlessly. "We've got him," one of the students transmitted excitedly. "He can't break through our defenses." But Zixela felt uneasy. It was going too well. Harding had taught them that when things seemed perfect, they were probably missing something. "Stay alert," she warned. "This isn't over." In the 4th hour, Harding's fleet suddenly pulled back, regrouping at a safe distance. The students watched, cautiously, expecting a new attack formation. Instead, 3 of Harding's ships sent out a signal. They were surrendering. According to simulation protocols, surrendered ships must be secured by the opposing force. "It's a trap," Kalara said immediately. "He's never surrendered in any previous exercise." "But we must follow protocol," another student argued. "If we ignore a surrender signal, we automatically fail for violating rules of engagement." As they debated, Zixela had a moment of clarity. They were still thinking like aliens, following rules and protocols. Harding had spent months teaching them to think differently. "What if we accept the surrender?" she said slowly. "But not in the way he expects." Instead of sending small teams to secure the surrendered vessels as protocol dictated, Zixela ordered a full attack force. As her ships approached the surrendering vessels, they launched a devastating barrage of weapons fire. The surprise was complete. Harding had indeed hidden special forces aboard the surrendering ships, ready to capture any small team sent to secure them. Instead, they faced an overwhelming attack. With this unexpected counterattack, the students seized the initiative. Breaking from their planned strategy, they implemented what they called controlled chaos, a series of seemingly random attacks that followed no recognizable pattern. "This feels wrong," Droom transmitted as he directed support ships to make aggressive attack runs. "It's wasteful and risky, but unpredictable," Zixla replied, "just like Harding taught us." As the 6th hour approached, the tide had turned completely. The students' erratic tactics had confused Harding's more experienced forces. With minutes remaining, they surrounded his command ship and forced its surrender, a real surrender this time. The simulation ended. For the first time in Academy history, students had defeated Instructor Harding in the final assessment. The pods opened, and the students emerged, laughing and congratulating each other. They expected to find Harding waiting with praise for their victory. Instead, he stood silently, his expression troubled. "Instructor?" Zixla approached cautiously. "Is something wrong?" "We passed your test." "Yes," Harding said quietly. "You passed too well." "I don't understand," Kalara said, her crystal form pulsing with confusion. "We used your tactics. We thought like humans." "That's what concerns me," Harding replied. "In that final attack, you didn't just use human tactics, you embraced human thinking completely. You were willing to sacrifice ships, break protocols, and use deception without hesitation." He looked at each of them in turn. "You've learned to think like humans," he said quietly. "I'm not sure if I should congratulate you or apologize." The celebration subdued, the students filed out of the simulation chamber. As they left, Zixla noticed something strange. Harding's face showed an expression they had never seen before. It wasn't his usual smile or his focused combat look. Later, she would learn the human word for it: regret. Graduation day approached quickly. The academy halls were filled with excited students preparing for their first assignments as officers. The war with the Drakon Imperium continued, and each graduate would soon face real combat. Zixla, Kalara, and Droom spent their final days studying reports from the front lines. The news was not good. The Drakon had launched a major offensive against New Terrania, a vulnerable Federation colony near the border. They had already destroyed 2 defense stations and were moving toward the main settlement. "The Federation is ordering a strategic withdrawal," Kalara said, her crystal form dimming with concern as she read the latest update. "They're abandoning the colony." "The Admiralty says the position is indefensible," Droom added. "They want to preserve forces for a counterattack later." Zixla's skin darkened with frustration. "Later will be too late. There are 2 million civilians on New Terrania." The 3 friends looked at each other, all thinking the same thing. After months under Harding's instruction, they saw the situation differently than the traditional fleet commanders. "The Drakon expect a withdrawal," Zixla said slowly. "It's what the Federation always does when outmatched." "Which makes it predictable," Kalara continued, her crystal form beginning to pulse with excitement. "And what did Harding teach us about predictability?" "It's death," they all said together. The Academy's command center housed a powerful communications array that connected to Federation headquarters. Normally, students were forbidden from entering without permission, but these were not normal students anymore. Using tricks they had learned from Harding about system security, they managed to gain access to the command center during the night shift. The single guard was surprised when 3 students, a Kurian, in a methane bubble, a crystalline Vosian, and a massive Taurian, walked confidently through the door. "We have authorization," Zixla lied smoothly, presenting a forged access card. Another human concept that once would have been unthinkable to them: dishonesty for strategic advantage. Once inside, they quickly accessed the battle planning systems. Using their combined knowledge, they designed an alternative strategy for the New Terrania defense. Instead of withdrawal, they proposed a counteroffensive that looked reckless on the surface, but contained layers of deception and misdirection that Harding would have approved of. "This will never work," a voice said from the doorway. They turned to find Academy officials and several instructors, including Sergeant Harding, watching them. They had been discovered. "Explain yourselves," demanded Admiral Vortan, the Academy's IR. "Commander," Zixla stepped forward. "The Federation's current strategy for New Terrania is flawed. We've developed an alternative approach." "Based on what authority?" the Admiral asked, his four eyes narrowing. "Based on what works," Kalara replied. "The Drakon have countered our traditional tactics for decades. They expect us to retreat and regroup. They've counted on that predictability." The officials began to argue among themselves. Some wanted the students disciplined immediately. Others were curious about their plan. Sergeant Harding remained silent until Admiral Vortan asked for his opinion. "You fear their plan because it doesn't follow your rules of engagement," Harding told the assembly. "That's precisely why it will work." He walked to the display showing the students' strategy. "Look at this. Instead of defending all positions, equally they've created intentional weak points to draw the Drakon in. They've prepared ambushes using the system's asteroid field. They've designed false communications that will make the Drakon believe our forces are in disarray. It's dishonorable," one of the traditional instructors protested. "The 2 million civilians on New Terrania don't care about honor," Harding replied. "They care about survival." The room fell silent as Admiral Vortan studied the plan more carefully. The students waited nervously. Finally he spoke. "I cannot officially endorse this strategy," he said, "but I will forward it to Fleet Command as a theoretical exercise from our tactical department." It was the most they could hope for. 3 days later, as they prepared for graduation, news arrived from the front. A small Federation battle group had engaged the Drakon at New Terrania. Against all expectations, they had achieved a stunning victory. The Drakon fleet had been caught in multiple traps, their communications confused by false signals, their ships drawn into killing zones one by one. The Federation had not only saved the colony, but destroyed a significant portion of the Drakon attack force. Reports indicated that the Drakon commanders were shocked by the unexpected tactics. On graduation day, the entire Academy gathered in the Grand Hall. Admiral Vortan personally presented commendations to Zixla, Kalara, and Droom for their theoretical contribution to tactical innovation. As they received their officer assignments, they noticed Sergeant Harding standing off to the side, watching with an expression they had learned to recognize as pride. The ceremony concluded, but the three friends lingered in the hall, looking around at the Academy that had changed them forever. "I heard the Admiralty is implementing what they call the Integrated Tactical Initiative across the fleet," Kalara said. "It's our strategy, renamed with an official title. And Harding has been promoted," Droom added. "They want him to train more instructors." Zixla noticed a group of new students watching them from across the hall. The newcomers looked nervous, whispering among themselves. She approached them. "First-year tactical students?" she asked. A small Firaxian nodded. "We've heard rumors about the tactical training. Some say it's better to request a different specialty." "Too late," Zixla told them with a smile that showed her teeth, a gesture she had consciously adopted from Harding. "Haven't you heard? All tactical instructors now use the Harding method." The new students looked horrified, finally understanding why tactical class with a human Deathworlder inspired such dread, and why that dread might just save the Federation. Later, as Zixla prepared to board her first assignment, she found Sergeant Harding waiting near the shuttle bay. "You've changed," he said simply. "All of you have." "For the better, I hope," she replied. Harding looked thoughtful. "You've learned to think like humans. That's a powerful tool, and a dangerous one. You once said there's no honor in extinction," Zixla reminded him. "We chose survival." "Just remember what we're fighting for," Harding said. "Not just to win, but to protect something worth winning for." Zixla's skin brightened with understanding. "That's the final lesson, isn't it? Knowing when to think like a Deathworlder, and when not to." Harding nodded. "The best officers know both how to win a war and how to build a peace afterward." As her shuttle departed, Zixla looked back at the Academy growing smaller in the distance. She thought about how far she had come from the theoretical tactician who had arrived months ago. The galaxy was changing. The Drakon had requested peace talks for the first time in 50 years. The Federation was evolving its approach to warfare and diplomacy, all because a single human had taught them to think differently. Somewhere in the vastness of space, other students were entering tactical class for the first time, about to learn why everyone dreaded lessons with a human Deathworlder, and why that dread was exactly what they needed.